Who's running for president? Click here for NewsPulse News 2020 Tracker. A presidential primary can be seen as a series of races within a race. You have the fundraising primary led by Senator Bernie Sanders, of Vermont, who raised $18.2 million in the first quarter. Former Vice President Joe Biden, whose campaign raised $6.3 million in its first 24 hours, is likely to challenge Sanders for fundraising laurels when the next quarter's reports are in. You have the policy primary led by Senator Elizabeth Warren, D.Mass., who continues to roll out policy proposals at an impressive rate. Buttigieg doesn't mind the attention. Somebody just said that Oprah mentioned me, which is arguably a bigger deal than coming in second in a poll, Buttigieg said in an interview with WGBH Radio in Boston on Tuesday. Honestly, this is not the trajectory we were expecting, he added. We thought we'd be spending the second quarter of this year mostly just making the case that we belong in this conversation. Note, Scaramucci, the former White House communications director, later clarified that he will support President Trump 100% for re-election. I don't write anybody off in this country for their choice of cable programming. Beto O'Rourke. There are now 21 candidates running for the Democratic presidential nomination. According to the Democratic National Committee, up to 20 candidates may qualify for the first debate, which will be held over 2 nights in late June. The New York Times reported on Thursday that 17 candidates have qualified so far. The 4 who have yet to do so: Senator Michael Bennet, D. Colo, who announced his candidacy Thursday, Representative Seth Moulton, D.Mass., who announced last week, Miramar, Florida, Mayor Wayne Messam, and self-help author Marianne Williamson. Meeting both the donations from 65,000 people, and polling, 1% in 3 polls, thresholds. Highest polling average. Largest number of unique donors. I think the choice that we face in this country today is the choice between freedom and socialism. Vice President Mike Pence. Senator Amy Klobuchar, D.Min., rolled out an expansive plan to battle opioids Friday, proposing $100 billion to fight an epidemic that kills over 130 Americans per day. Klobuchar discussed the plan in terms of her father, who suffered from alcohol addiction for years. Christopher Wilson. Percentage of clean energy use in the United States by 2030 under Washington Governor Jay Inslee's plan to combat climate change. While many of the Trump administration's immigration policies have been widely condemned by Democrats, most of the 2020 presidential candidates have held back from presenting specific plans for reform. Castro's ambitious proposal includes many standard Democratic positions, including a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers, for refugees with temporary protected status because they would be in danger in their homelands, and millions of others living in the U.S. without protection or other options for legal status. He pledged to undo a number of Trump administration policies, including the ban on entry for citizens of majority Muslim countries and barriers to asylum seekers. He would reverse Trump's large cuts to refugee quotas and expand the qualifying categories to account for new global challenges like climate change. The proposal also includes bold reforms to the broader immigration system, starting with a repeal of the law that treats crossing the border without authorization as a federal crime rather than a civil violation. This statute, he notes in his proposal, has allowed for separation of children and families at our border, the large-scale detention of tens of thousands of families, and has deterred migrants from turning themselves into an immigration official within our borders. He also seeks to eliminate the private immigration detention and prison industry, and drastically reduce the population of detainees. Caitlin Dixon. Percentage of Americans who feel Trump's use of Twitter will cost him re-election. Read more original 2020 coverage from NewsPulse News.